This episode of Thinking Tackle is in association with Daiwa Linear BR Reels.
Welcome to Thinking Tackle, and what a way to start the show. 31.5 pounds of mirror carp. Look at that creature, as black as you're at. Absolutely stunning. I'm sure later in the year he's going to be a lot bigger than this. The fish have just spawned here and it's making it very, very tricky. But I managed to fluke this one just out the margins, about 10 yards out in front of me, because I was getting loads of liners yesterday afternoon. They're at Wellington Country Park, which is the scene of the underwater films, parts 5 and 6. And we're hoping to get amongst a few more of these absolutely massive carp that live in here. At the moment, there's probably 10 40s in here. At the right time of the year, there's probably 20 40s in this lake. It's absolutely astounding place. And we're fishing with one of the regulars here, Iain Macmillan, aka Ting Tong. He's done a couple of seasons on here and been very successful on the boilie approach, which is not my way of fishing at all. So we're going to be picking his brains on how to spread boilies over a wide area and get those fish picking around for your bait so you get more and more takes. So without further ado, we're going to get this fella back and get on with that technical information. Right mate, I'm going to bow to your better judgment because, as I've already said, this is not me at all. Catapults and throwing sticks and all that sort of thing. Now, done a night out there. There were fish showing, weren't there, yesterday evening over the top of that spot. Yeah. And there were fish fizzing up this morning, so I'm guessing that they've eaten a fair bit of the bait that's out there.
Yeah, 100%.
So how much would you put back out now in this situation?
After seeing what I saw, I mean, I saw a fish actually sort of stick its head out over the spot as well this morning. Yeah. I would think nothing, at least a kilo.
Really?
Yeah. Straight out there.
Straight out there?
Straight out there.
Right, okay, well let's have a go with the catapult and see if it gets them out there. They're air-dried 18s. It's the new Grange mix, the one that not even you're allowed to have yet. No.
They are actually perfect.
Look at that, that's gone out there bang on.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I always prefer to use the catapult if I can, and then I move over to the stick if the pulp won't go far enough.
I mean, yes, I'll only use the catapult when it's actually too close to use the stick.
Really?
Yeah.
For what reason?
For the reason that I don't want them to be, how are they landing, that close. Not, I want them to be, I want to scatter them, purposely scatter them with a stick.
Right, okay.
And the further out I fish,
yeah,
the more I can scatter them.
Right, they're not quite going far enough now that wind's got up. Let's have a go with that.
Okay.
They're properly air dried, so they shouldn't.
Yeah,
split.
They do shrink down, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, where are they gone? Not far, caught the wind. You see how I'm out of practice, can't you?
You can spot boilies now.
Can you? Just our luck, the wind's got up.
Yeah, the wind's just picked up at the wrong time. But yeah, I mean, there's a few people that kind of frown upon using a lot of boilies. But if you roll 10 kilos of boilies out on the floor, anywhere in the swim, and it's absolutely nothing to these fish. They're big fish. They're big because they've got big by eating boilies.
Yeah, right.
And I've seen, you know, in the snags and when you can watch them close in, they absolutely muller a kilo of boilies.
Really?
Yeah, easily.
To be fair,
Three or four big fish that come in, and once you get them feeding, they won't stop until they've finished every one.
Really?
Yeah. And again, because we saw fish activity here this morning, we spoke about when do we think that the hook bait actually gets taken. You know, you've got to be very, very lucky.
Not at all, actually, this morning.
Well, but you've got to be very lucky for it to be one of the first to take in, I feel. Yeah. Which is why I think we do get done time and time again before we actually get a pickup. So a kilo is a minimum I would put as a kilo. Right, and you'll spread it out a fair bit. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're fishing 2 rods, what, 50, 60 yards apart? Yeah. I would possibly be tempted to put a line, you know. In between the two? Yeah, yeah. It's strange because I went from fishing very tight and accurate, how you fish now, to this style. And it took me a while to adjust. Yeah. To actually purposely not putting the bait bang on top of the rig every time. Yeah, well, it's going to take me a while, mate, as well, to be honest. All right, well, look, I'm going to get the rest of this out there. Thank you for the advice. Okay. If I catch one, I'll credit you, mate. All right? On this particular session I've chosen to fish an area called Bramble Bay, and we actually made the underwater film a couple of years ago on the far side of the bay over there, so I know it reasonably well. I've fished this swim once before on a guest a few years ago. There's lots of silkweed out in front of me. The reason I've come in here is there was a guy in here already, Nigel Botherway, does Carp TV and Talk Sport. He'd caught 4 or 5 fish from this particular swim and was leaving, and the fish were obviously here, so I've moved straight in there. And that's a good little tip. If people are catching fish and the swim gets vacated, there's nothing wrong with moving straight in there and fishing the same sort of areas, and that's exactly what I've done this time. I've basically got one rod probably about 50 yards out straight in front of me. That's where Nigel got most of his bites. I've got another rod off to the left, probably about 45 yards out, and the third rod is cast over to the right at about the same distance. So I'm taking some advice from Iain Macmillan and the other people that fish here. I'm not fishing close together, which is my normal style. I'm spreading the rods out. I've put bait all over it, but so far on the long rods nothing's happened. Now the fish we started to show off with got caught literally just down there. Yesterday afternoon I was getting loads and loads of line bites. I thought that there might be something wrong with the rigs originally, because it was pulling right up to the top and then dropping back down again very quickly. But what we've worked out is the fish are just coming round this corner very, very close in, and they're hitting the lines. Now I'm fishing with fluorocarbon main line on, and that's basically very, very heavy and very, very hard to see. So I'm not using a back lead. It's sinking down the slope just in front of me, and as the fish are coming round the corner or coming backwards and forwards, they're not seeing the line and they're picking it up. So that's an indication that at the moment I'm fishing too far out. I've already brought the left hand rod in and cast it just round the corner over my shoulder there, but I've had a couple more vicious line bites just in the last sort of half an hour, so I'm going to wind in the other 2 rods now. I've still got the lines marked up at the right distance, but I'm going to wind these 2 in, and I'm literally going to flop them out there just a couple of rod lengths and try and intercept a few of these fish that are coming round the corner. So just carefully get that one, get the weed off the line. I'm not going to clip it up just in case I do get a take and it takes loads of line. Just wind that in off the spot. I'm going to do the other rod as well, and then I'm just going to drop them out just in front of me. Right, it is literally just down there. The line has happened all afternoon yesterday afternoon. I didn't realise until about 8:30 what was going on, and once the penny had dropped, the rod went out. It took a few hours to get the take. Actually happened in darkness, but you never know. I'm starting much earlier this time, so we're just going to underarm this out into this strong northerly wind that's blowing in my face. Just down there, dump like that. About 3 foot deep, I reckon, just there, just off the edge of the gravel. We'll slack them right off. No bobbing to start off with. That's the good thing about this fluorocarbon. It's so heavy that you don't even need a back lead. Just pull plenty off, let it go nice and slack. Me being the tackle tart that I am, I'm trying to get the reel handle in the right position. There we go. And if you're fishing close in, to start off with, just let it all go completely slack. Let the line sink, and then a few minutes later, put your bobbin on. So I'm going to get the other rods done now.
This episode of Thinking Tackle is in association with Daiwa Linear BR Reels.
Is it a carp?
It certainly is. It's not a pike.
No, we won't talk about the pike from yesterday.
Or the fact that I wouldn't touch it.
So do you mind doing a little bit of talking while you're playing this fish?
Not at all, no.
So tell us about the rod and reel and line and everything that you're using for this sort of fishing.
Okay, it's a 3.5 test curve extreme rod. Again, it's quite weedy, so you want something that's powerful enough to pull through the weed. If you want to get out quite a long way, you know it'll do the job for you.
Yep.
The reel is a magnesium technium, a big pit, you know, big spools for big casting.
Yeah, very lightweight though.
Very lightweight, but will equally serve you fishing close quarters, you know.
Yeah. Which you're not fishing a million miles out here, are you?
No, I'm probably about 60 yards, little holes in the weed. The main line is a 12-pound adrenaline, which since I've used it, I'll openly say that it's the best line I've ever used. It's quite springy, I feel, but which I like. Very abrasion resistant. Can hardly see it in the water.
Yeah.
And I've had some really good fish, big hits from both home and abroad on the line.
This is coming in like a dog on a lead, mate, isn't it? And I see there as well you're back-leaded. I see the back lead sliding down the line there, and I can see your other two lines.
Yeah.
Oh, which I think you might have picked one of them up, mate.
Again, I don't normally do it on here because of the weed, but
yeah, it's difficult, isn't it?
That's a good fish.
Yeah. I'm gonna stay. You carry on, and I'm gonna get the net.
But because of the angle that I'm fishing, and the direction of the wind, a lot of the floating weed is going to wipe you out, and I don't want it moving me leads really. So normally on here a back lead is a no-no, but in this occasion it's a must really.
Right.
There's not a great deal of thick weed between me and my spot, so you know the back lead isn't going to clog up, and hopefully, you know, it's not going to.
Oh look, it's right down here.
It's not going to cause me to lose it, you know. But we moved swims to get on the fish really. Even though I caught one before you turned up.
I thought you'd like to get that in.
Yeah, but
he's so close, isn't he? I'm not gonna stab at him. I'll wait until because he don't seem ready. So I'm gonna wait until he's laying there, mate. It's a £20 common, isn't it?
Get in the net.
Gotcha! Yes! Come on! That was a bit hairy, wasn't it, son, eh?
It's not common. I
have
never wanted to fish in the net so badly.
It's not common, it's not common. It's a lovely mirror.
That's a big mirror.
Look at that! That's a 3-0, son, isn't it? Put it there, my man. Good angling. Good angling.
Okay.
Job done. 20. He is, or she is, if she's just spawned, 30, an ounce under 34 pound, 33.15. Yeah, mate. Good skills, son. Good skills.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Right, let's get some pictures done of him. Just straight on like that.
Beastie.
Beast, mate. Tell you, look.
Proper old warrior, isn't it?
It is, mate. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. 33.15 of Wellington Country Park mirror. Absolutely over the moon to catch this fish. A bit of pressure on me from Dan here to get this one. Caught it on a double activate bottom bait on a rig that we'll show you later. But yeah, absolutely over the moon. Get in.
We're going to talk rigs now with Iain, and first of all, mate, it makes me go weird just looking at that. That is like the longest bottom bait hook link I've seen in my life. Obviously they work, you've had a load of fish out of here. Tell us first of all why you're using a hook link as long as that.
Well, Dan, the lake is notoriously silty in places. It's quite deep silt. Again, you know, I want it to be not buried in the silt, if you like.
Yep.
And my quite aggressive approach with the boilies lends itself to the bigger fish I want them moving around, picking the baits up, you know, actively searching them out and dropping the guard.
Right, when you say aggressive, what do you mean?
Lots and lots of boilies.
Right,
you know,
okay.
Spreading them around, really making the fish kind of, you know, work for them, almost competing for the bait.
Right,
you
so
know.
they're once they've started eating and they're charging around from bait
they're
to
actively
bait.
searching all the time, yeah.
Right, okay, and why is the long hook link important in that situation then?
Well, again, there's a bit of weed, there's a lot of silt of varying depths, you know, so what I don't want is for the rig to be buried in the silt. I want to be fishing on top of the silt.
Right.
And again, I just think it just suits this style of fishing for me on here.
Right.
I really do.
Okay, and the material?
The material is the hybrid soft.
Right.
Again, I started using that last year. I used to use the stiff quite a lot, but since I've used this, I've not used anything else for any of my fishing.
Right.
Because again, it will sit on top of the silt. If the lead is buried, it sits on top of the silt. If it sits over weed, it's got to take to the weed.
Right. Because it's a
lot more supple.
A lot more supple
than the stiff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you were using the stiff, I mean, was it just as weedy as it is now?
No. 2 years ago, the stiff was perfect.
Right.
Never tangled. There was not really a lot of weed in here apart from the two bays.
Right.
So again, they used to find that real severe going to the supple braid once you've peeled the coating back.
Yeah.
They couldn't deal with it. With
Right.
a longer link, it just worked instantly for me.
Right. But as it got weedier?
As it got weedy, I wanted something that was more supple, that would take to the weed and take to the contours of the lake a bit better. And the hybrid soft does it absolutely perfectly.
Right. And then hooking arrangement wise, I see you've got a curve shank on there. I mean, that, if you don't mind me saying, that I'd cast that out in France. two baits. I'm not taking a mick or anything, but two baits, fairly big baits on the hair, a reasonably big hook as well.
Yeah.
Again, why does that suit this kind of venue?
Again, I mean, today I'm feeding 24 mils.
Right.
You know, 24 mil baits. What you don't want to do is put a size 10 hook on a double 18 mil bottom bait.
Right.
It just doesn't look natural. You want a big hook that's going to grab, and you're fishing big baits, a big hook. Once it goes in the mouth, they ain't going to spit that out.
Right. And your little bit of silicone I see you've got on there is quite a long way down the hook. I have mine right up by the bend. Explain to us why you've got that on there.
For that style of hook, I personally think it sits better when you hold the rig up.
Right, so if I hold it like that,
hold it like that,
right,
you can see how aggressively
it's kicking out, isn't it?
Kicking it right out without shrink tube, which is obviously is the makeup of the hook. When I use a wide gape, I'll push the silicone slightly further down because I've got the silicone that flips over, and it causes the hook to flip over and grab the fish.
Right. Okay. So
that does it without silicone.
Right. Okay.
Very, very aggressive, and again, they ain't going to spit that out.
Yeah.
They're going to have trouble with a double bait, let alone the double bait and a big curved hook as well.
Right. So obviously it's harder for them to get rid of.
Yeah.
Is there any other reason for using two baits?
Again, just at the moment, quite a lot of silkweed, early in the spring, and it will just, with a bit of foam, it will just sit slowly, and it'll almost rest on top of the silkweed.
Right.
Almost flattening it.
So so it's flattening down on the silkweed ever so slightly, so the hook can still catch hold in the fish's mouth, basically.
And I will use, at times, a couple of pieces of foam. So it will sit up and just slowly fall on it. You know?
Right, this is dissolving foam that you just fold around the
PVA
hook.
foam, yeah.
On the cast,
yes.
you know, holds everything away from the lead system as well. Yeah. And then it would end up just...
And it just rests on top of the silkweed. Or again, on any Canadian,
right.
It will just sit on top of it, you know,
right.
with a double bait.
So you're definitely fishing. And I noticed them baits are quite a bit harder than ones you get out of the bag. Is that on purpose?
Yeah, again, there's quite a few crays and roach in here that have caused problems on my first couple of sessions with baits straight out of the bag.
Right.
The activate is a bit soft, but what I do with these is I'll dry them out, put a needle through them as they're drying, and then they're not going to go off, so I then put them in a pot of activate glug, which again hardens them continually.
Right. Okay.
And it just keeps, it's confidence that I know I'm fishing all the time. I don't want to reel in and there's no bait on because the crays have mullered me.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, especially when you've got them jumping over the top of your spot one after the other.
Yeah. But that again, they'll never get that off. We'll never, but not within the time I'll recast.
Right. And lead system wise, fairly simplistic there. Lead clip, safe zone leader. Yeah. What's that for?
Again, I use the square pairs a lot on here, or with the silt. I want it to plug in. Right. Like with 3 ounce can turn into 8 ounce if it's plugged in silt. But because of the longer link, the hook bait is still being presented on top of the silt. Right. The safe zone leaders again, the tungsten, which will obviously sink to the bottom. It will take to the weed. It will take to the silkweed because they're not so severe that they're just going to sit. Yeah. Because they're quite supple, basically. Yes, exactly. And they're not like a broomstick, so they're going to take to everything. Again, pinning it down where you need to be, and adapting to the contours where that needs to be applicable as well. Right.
So simple, reliable,
confidence.
Strong, and confident.
Mate, it works for me.
And you know that if you chuck that out, you're going to get one on it.
Yeah. I never doubt the rig.
Right.
I never doubt the rig or the bait.
Right. Well, it's good to have that amount of confidence. So if you're fishing on large spreads of boilies, don't be afraid to have 2 on the hair. I'm certainly learning from it. I've got some more sessions coming up later in the year on this particular venue, and I'll be taking in Ian's advice and using the longer hook links.
This episode of Thinking Tackle is in association with Daiwa Linear BR Reels.
One of the questions I get asked most at shows is how do I fish in weed? People can't get their head around it. They get worried that the hook's going to get snarled up and everything. There's a couple of basic principles. 1, make sure the hook link's long enough, and 2, fish a hook bait that will lift the hook up in the weed so it doesn't get snarled up. So my first choice when I'm fishing over particle, if I'm spodding or whatever, is 2 grains of plastic corn, fished on a very, very short hair, tiny little split shot. That's just going to sit like that, just in the upper layers of the weed. You don't want a high pop up that's right up above the weed if you've got loads of bait out there. You want it to look like all the other bits that are laying out there. That's a hybrid soft hook link, so a very, very soft coated hook link with a bit of putty on it as well there, just to make sure everything just rests in the upper layers of the weed. And that corn is the stuff you get straight out of the packet, and what I've done is just jazzed it up a little bit. That's my little batch there of corn that's flavoured in a very fruity flavour. And what I'd recommend you do, look around your tackle shop and buy a few of the little bottles, the ones that maybe got dust on them, the old fruity flavours that no one uses anymore. They're all brilliant for flavouring corn. I've got glow in the dark stuff in there, the very bright green stuff, and a few sinking bits as well in case I want to fish on the bottom. So jazz it up a little bit with a few little drops, keep smelling it. That's lovely and pungent and sort of citrusy smell. Really, really good, and I'll rate that better than the unflavoured stuff. So if you're going to fish over spod mix, that's what you'd use. But in this situation, obviously we're fishing boilies, so I've changed it around for a boilie hook bait. It's not a pop-up and it's not a bottom bait. It's what we call a snowman. So the top one there is a buoyant bait, the bottom one is a sinker. It's fished on a slightly different hook. That's one of the curved shank hooks in a size 6. Grips hold really, really effectively. No need for shrink tube on this one. Again, the hybrid soft and still weighted down with a couple of bits of putty. I think that's really important to get it all sitting amongst the weed, and that's literally going to sit over like that. Both of them I would fish with the old PVA stick there. Very, very important in my opinion to stop the hook getting masked up in any weed. You've seen Ian uses a bit of foam. I actually like to use that because you've got a little bit of a traction around the hook bait as well. So on this particular one, we've got a hook link maybe of about 10 inches, a couple of bits, all little bleep on my left hand rod. And then we're down to a lead clip. Standard lead clip, must make sure that the swivel's pulled in, a size 8 swivel's pulled in super tight. It will click in place, and that means that swivel isn't going to pull out too easily. So what's going to happen instead, if I grab that lead, is the lead is going to pull off the clip. like that. So if it gets caught up in any weed when you're playing the fish, it will pull off, because obviously there is a lot of weed out there. You're not only fishing on it, but you've got to drag the fish back through it. So that 3-ounce distance lead just goes onto the lead clip. I wet the rubber before I put it on there. Wet that, push it down. A good little tip, especially when you're fishing in warm conditions like this, these do tend to dry out during the day. So if you've got the rig hooked up in the butt ring for any period of time, in between sessions or during the day, make sure you pull that rubber off, wet it, and push it back on again before you start fishing, and then it will release the lead properly. And then a weedy coloured safe zone leader. You can't use lead core on here, but I'll be happy to use rig tubing instead. But this time I've chosen the safe zone leaders because they blend in so well, and everything is colour coded to the silkweed. So you've got the green hook link and the green leader as well. And one last little tip, for those of you who notice the little details, I'm sure you've already seen it, but compare the two there and look where that rig ring is coming off the hook. For what is effectively a bottom bait, it's coming off the hook right down by the top of the shank, sort of the start of the bend if you like, but on a pop-up it's coming off the middle of the shank. That's very, very important. So that it sits over on a pop-up rig, so it sits over cocked like a claw. If that ring's too far down on a pop-up, the hook will actually turn back round the other way like that and face back towards the lead. And I don't want that. I want the hook so it's facing down into the bottom lip of the fish. And last but by no means least, these fellas. I make these on the bank. Little pop-ups there, there's some little tangy ones, pineapple pop-ups, that's a fantastic flavour. Tangerine's brilliant as well. Mix the two for even more pungent flavours. And then that one, that's the new bait, the Grange, that's coming out probably next year. There's some pop-ups that I've made with a little tiny bit of base mix and then loads of Polaris base mix, where it actually makes it pop up. Rolling round, you see I've got a few little tiny squares and some stuff that looks like chops in there as well. A little bit of extra effort to get superb little pop-ups like that will catch you a lot more fish when you're fishing in the weed. Going out there, mate, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's a new area, isn't it?
Yeah, I sprinkled a bit of bait on it this morning. It's a nice, clear, sort of silty area, and I think the fish are moving out in the middle of the night.
Right. What makes you say that?
Just the fact we've seen fish on a kind of diagonal line in front of a hole in the bush. I'm just hoping to ambush them as they come back. Well, either going out now because they're still here, or coming back in the morning. So.
Right. So you've got 2 rods still down there.
Yeah.
And then one's going long out there.
Yeah, it's probably about 80 yards. Went down with a nice sort of thud. Had a couple of casts with just a bare lead, nothing come back, so that is an absolutely perfect area. No need for a marker float. You're not fishing over gravel bars or plateaus, you're after clear areas like that.
Nice, nice, that could easily produce one. Now while I've got you doing this, I'm sure a lot of people would be dying to know how you got into working in the trade, because every carp angler, it's probably their dream job to work in the carp trade.
Yep.
You're in the magazines as well, you know, so you're effectively getting paid to go carp fishing. You're not getting paid for doing this, by the way, but you know, you're getting paid to go carp fishing. So how did you get into it?
It was probably about 5 years ago. I'm a sprayer by trade, and I was working nights, so I was still getting to fish 3 days a week.
Right.
Horseshoe, linear, cut my teeth a lot on linear, moved on to Lynch Hill, catching a lot of fish, a lot of 30s back then. And then I got my first job in the trade. I got to do a couple of articles. I was approached by a couple of the magazines. And then
so you caught the fish first? You had a decent track record, the magazines came and approached you?
Yeah, a couple of articles. It snowballed from there. Started to get on well with a good few people sort of in the trade already. Yeah. Got my first break with another company that I used to work for, which again put me on that bottom rung of the ladder. Yeah. And then obviously I've now gone a bit further up or down, whichever way you want to look at it.
And what's it like working in the trade?
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah?
Yeah. I've met some brilliant people, very good friends. Some really close friends, not met any enemies. It's all, as you know, quite a close-knit community. Yeah, it is. And I still I still love going carp fishing because I have that ability to switch off on a Thursday tea time or dinner time, whichever way I'm wangling my job. and actually go carp fishing.
Right.
And
So
the
you're
lake-
still doing like 3-4 days a week or 3 days a week?
I do 3 nights. I get
Right.
to the lake on a Thursday afternoon, and I'll go Sunday morning.
Cool.
Which, I've got a very understanding Mrs. Kathy. She's a diamond. She puts up with, no end of
Yeah, mine does as well,
rubbish.
actually.
And she listens to me waffling on every night about carp fishing, even though I say that she talks complete rubbish on the phone like women do.
I think we're worse, aren't we?
But I think we're worse. If we were to listen back at one another, I don't think we would say half the things we did to each other on the phone.
Yeah. And one last tip then, for someone that wants to either get into the trade or become a sponsored angler, what would you say they should do?
You've got to be able to catch some fish. You've got to put yourself about a bit, really.
Yep.
You've got to be proactive and try and get, the field testing price bait, and
Yep.
don't just go and expect it all initially.
Yep.
Work your way up.
Yep.
And you will be approached by companies.
Cool.
Because that's how it's happened for all of us. So,
Good.
but it's cool.
Okay, mate. Well, I'll let you carry on doing that, and hopefully that rod will produce a bite tonight. You never know.
Very confident indeed.
This episode of Thinking Tackle is in association with Daiwa Linear BR Reels.
Okay, mate, we're a couple of days into the session now. You've chosen quite a famous area, and one I know that you've bashed up before. But, you didn't start off fishing where you normally fish in this swim, did you?
No, Dan, all the fish were kind of in this corner.
Right.
Northeast.
And why is that, just so people know?
It's been warm last couple of days.
Yep.
And it's a northeasterly wind.
Right.
The water is really, really warm. Just finished
It's,
spawning.
it's lovely, actually.
Yeah,
It's lapping around my ankles at the
I
moment.
can't actually feel it with the old attractive waders on.
So they get in there when it's hot?
Yeah, it's quite shallow.
Right.
And all this bank, this is the last swim you can fish, so it's a real kind of
Right.
unpressured bank, really.
Right.
All 3 were down there to start with.
Right.
A couple of little clear areas. Managed to sneak one. And then I think some have moved out now. Rick's had a couple from Goose Point casting
So
over.
the guy over there.
The guy over there, yeah.
Yep.
But then it just kind of felt right for change today.
Right.
So
Now, this is the thing that just let me stop you, because people, you say it felt right.
Yeah.
Right? What makes it feel right? What leads you to do that? Because people want to know, why does someone suddenly move from someone that's produced a bite out into the lake?
Just all 3 lines going, you can see from the direction the rods are pointing,
Yeah.
all 3 lines are getting that way.
Right.
They've been smashed up a bit over the last sort of 3 or 4 days down there.
Right. There's been a lot caught.
Yeah,
So that's
sorry,
carp
yeah,
angler
sorry,
terminology.
sorry, yeah,
There've been a lot caught.
Get
Yeah,
out of the
go on.
carpy
Yeah,
mode.
go on.
And 3 lines down there plus Rick's lines over, a bit too much, so it just felt right.
Right.
And I thought I would try a couple of me sort of favourite haunts where I've caught fish from before.
Right. And again, that comes from experience. You've done sessions in this
Yeah.
swim a fair bit.
Yeah.
You know what rods produce bites.
It's area, not a spot, I keep saying it's a spot, but on this lake it's an area. So I know.
Right.
those
And
sort
why
of
is
areas.
that? That's,
Because the lake is very, very flat.
Right,
Not a lot
okay.
of kind of depth differences, no gravel bars. There's
Right.
one plateau, but that's it. That's in Bramble where you're fishing.
Right.
Here it's quite uniform silt.
Yep.
4.5, 5 foot. Absolutely perfect.
Right. So you're fishing an area, a bigger section of
Yes,
the lake,
I'm not
rather than
fishing-
a little tiny,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, like dinner table, as I call it.
Sure.
You know, it's
It's an area.
Right.
It could be, that area is quite big, perhaps 3 rod lengths by 3 rod lengths, which
Right.
is a massive area really.
Yeah.
But it's all smooth silt.
Right. Okay. And I noticed when you cast out there, you didn't use the marker float. Mm-hmm. Why was that?
Because I'm not looking for that. I'm not looking for the up and down of the features
Right.
of the lake bed.
Right.
I can do exactly the same job with a lead.
Right. So you're just feeling the lead hit
Feeling
the
the
bottom.
lead down, pull it slightly back.
Right.
If it's smooth, it's fishable.
Right. Okay. Cool. And baiting wise, obviously I've seen you using the stick the whole time you've been here.
Mm-hmm.
What's your theory behind that, and how much do you put in?
I put in probably about 2 kilos
Right.
onto the silver birch, which is obviously the left hand rod.
Right,
you
which
can
has got
see,
one rod fishing
which
on
has
it.
got 1 rod fishing
Right.
on that
Okay.
area.
Right.
I'm not had a bite off that yet, but I've put more bait in today.
Right.
Because there's been fish. I've seen fish sort of to the right and to the left, a bit further out and
Yep.
closer in. So
Right.
I'm confident that bait, some of that bait, if not all of it, has been eaten.
Right. Okay. So when you started down there, how much bait did you put out on those rods?
Again, 2 kilos to start with.
Right.
That spot has done a bite.
Yep.
So again, another couple of kilo went out, and a bit more this morning.
Right, okay.
I saw at least 20 shows down there last night.
Right, 20 fish.
20 fish sticking
Showing.
their heads up, and some of them are really coming, launching themselves out of the water.
Right.
So I suspect they've been having me over slightly, as normal.
Yeah.
But they're down there. For some
Right.
reason, they're just down in on this wind.
Right.
And it just, you can't put enough bait in at times when it's like that.
Right. And what makes you choose when to put more bait out? Because that's the thing I see a lot of people do wrong in their fishing. They seem to put it out at just the moment and that might catch one and then ruin it. So how do you know when is the right time?
Again, a lot of that will come with experience and confidence in not overkilling the swim. Little and often can be the same approach with the spard or with boilies.
Right.
Some people prefer to start off with 50, 60 baits on an area or a spot.
Yep.
I like a couple of kilos.
Right, okay.
And I know this pocket in my chest is holds a kilo of bait.
Right.
Because I've opened a bag and I've got them in there. So
Right.
I know that a kilo of bait that goes in there.
Right, okay.
Just a little kind of quirky thing.
Yeah,
of
it's a
mine
good
that I've
little,
got,
it's a
you
good
know.
little tip. And then you've got another rod. I've noticed you've moved out to the left there. You've got another rod out where those coots are, sort of thing, at the moment.
Yeah, again, it's a good. I've had a lot of fish off there in the past. The
Right.
Gorse Bush spot, as it's called, it's
Right,
quite a
yeah,
well-known spot. It's a lot of people do fish it,
Right.
and it does do a lot of fish.
Right.
And what you do is you get the fish as they're coming in and out of bramble, or they're holding up in front of a hole in the bush, which is another good swim.
Right.
And you tend to nick them as you're coming. You're only fishing sort of a rod length out into the silt gully as it's coming off the gravel.
Yep.
And you do tend to nick a lot of fish from
Right.
it.
Now, this sort of fishing, I know we've spoken during the session and the places you fished before, you've been spotting, you've been fishing tight, short hook links. Here you're fishing long hook links, big bait, spreading the bait around. What makes this lake different to where you fished before so that people can associate this kind of fishing with somewhere they might fish?
Because it's now quite weedy. It used to be very clean bottom, quite again uniformed, hardly any weed.
Right.
It just lends itself to creating a feeding area
Right.
rather than a feeding spot amongst a dense weed bed.
Right, okay.
For me. And I want, going back to the competition thing for the fish, you want them coming in and actually competing and
Right.
moving around the whole area if possible,
Right.
to search out every last bait.
Right, so if you're fishing a shallower, more uniform lake, you would spread the bait out a little bit more and get them searching around for it.
I would, but we've had this discussion that you think you can, or you're going to do it your way and
Yeah.
spot it, and I still think you'll catch a lot of fish.
Yeah.
But because this has worked from day one for me, I haven't changed.
Right.
Because there's nothing really wrong with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I ain't going to change everything
Yeah, sure.
just because I'm stubborn and I want to try the hemp and corn.
Yeah, yeah.
But I know it will work.
Right.
And I know you will catch
Well,
loads.
we'll see. We'll see later in the year. And the last thing, bait-wise, you've got in with Activate. It's an old bait. You
Yeah,
know, it's
yeah,
a good
yeah.
few years
Yes,
old
it
now,
is,
isn't
yeah,
it? You
yeah.
know, and we're in our position. We're always being pushed to use the latest thing to promote it and everything
Which I've had
else.
several heated discussions about.
So why Activate? What made you use that?
I wanted a bait that was again a tried and tested bait. I wanted something that had been in this lake over the years. Because I would stick my neck out and say Activate has been into every lake that people
Yep.
fish because it's quite an old bait.
Yep.
I wanted something that wasn't too kind of potent, too smelly, just something that I thought would be right, not something bright. The colour, everything about it was perfect
Right.
for me. It wasn't too bright, it wasn't too dark, it smelt right. And I knew straight away, first session, 24 and a 31
Nice.
in 2 nights. So,
Right.
and I've never used anything else.
Right. Well, if I start struggling later in the year, I shall be getting
Getting
some
on the
Activate.
Activate.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. I saw in the magazines recently a good little tip that you did actually, which is rare. Not rare for you to do anything good in the
Thanks for that,
magazines, but rare for me to read them. So show us it about how to convert a bait that a bream could get in its mouth to a bait that a bream can't get in its mouth.
Well, again, I won't say a bream can't get one of these in the mouth, but depending on how hard or how big you want to make them,
Yep.
will make it a lot more difficult for tench, bream, roach even, which there are quite a number in here. We've got the cork balls, and obviously these are just standard bottom baits.
Right. Straight out of the bag, bottom
Straight
bait.
out of the bag. I would say that's a 14-ish.
Yep. Yep.
And again, bit of paste, Activate paste, because obviously that's what we're fishing.
That you just buy in a
Yeah,
tackle
well,
shop that just comes
Yeah,
out.
yeah, again.
it's in the freezer, isn't it, in the tackle shop? If you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
to buy it?
you've got to keep it in the
Yeah.
freezer.
So this is the fresh paste that makes the boilies.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And again,
Just push that into there like that.
in, and then me being OCD'd as I am, I'll spend about 3 hours rolling one, so it's perfectly round. But again, that is probably a 22 to 24 mil bait now.
At least, if not bigger. Just put your hand out flat, mate, so everyone can see it. So from that to that. Now, I've done a lot of fishing in Holland, in France, especially in Holland. The bream are a massive problem. If you had a 20 mil bait, I found putting 3 on the hair still doesn't stop them because they can get it in their gob. But if you would suddenly make it a 24 mil or bigger, because it won't actually fit in their mouth, it will stay out there until a carp comes along.
Yeah.
So that is a great little tip. How long do you boil them for?
Because in the magazine it was 2 minutes, because the size of the actual bottom bait that we started with was bigger than that.
Right.
The bottom bait was an 18 mil.
Right.
So you only need obviously a thinner layer of paste.
Yep.
To make it the desired size that you want.
Yep.
That I would probably boil for 3 minutes because there's quite a lot of paste.
Right, and just boil it on the bank?
Yeah, yeah.
And how long do you leave it after it's been boiled?
An hour, just to dry, on a towel.
Okay.
You don't even have to, you just got to leave them to cool down.
Right.
I suppose if you're really in a rush, you could just throw them in cold water if you really, but as a rule of thumb, an hour, and you can cast them out quite easily.
And they're ready to go. And that's you're going from getting plagued by nuisance fish to not getting plagued by nuisance fish.
Yeah.
In an hour.
And again, a little cork ball which everybody carries in the tackle box.
Yeah.
Me mainly for zigs, because I'm not really a pop-up man. But again, what's that? That's a 10 mil cork ball.
Yeah, 10 mil cork ball. Yeah.
And you suddenly turn it into a 16 to 18 mil pop-up.
Yeah. And of course, it's a pop-up that smells and tastes exactly the same as all the other baits you're using.
Yeah.
And that one, how long do you boil that for?
That 2 minutes. That
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But again, you can get cork balls of varying sizes from, I suppose, 6 mil to 20 mil, can't you? Depending on how big you want to use your baits. But
yeah. I'll tell you what I've found. I used to use cork ball pop-ups a lot, and the thinner the layer you can get on them, obviously the more buoyant it is.
Yeah, I mean that's you can break that open
and tease bits off of that.
Yeah, there's probably like a 5 mil, 5-6 mil skin of paste around that ball.
But what I found you can also make is you can make a bottom bait the same size as all the other baits you're using, but because it's got a cork ball in it, it's that much more buoyant. So it just sinks with the weight of the hook.
Yes.
You can play around with it. So good little thing. So that does go off, doesn't it? You have to keep it in the freezer. It does go off.
You have to keep it in the freezer, or else it will go off.
Yeah.
And again, this one I use is just to match the bait that I'm using on this light, but you can get it in any flavour, I think.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that is a very good tip of how to make your sinking baits buoyant and also how to get around those nuisance fish. Cheers, mate. Well, the Gauls bush rod paid off for you, mate.
Yep.
Excellent. How big?
32-14, Dan.
Excellent.
Stunning car.
You said it was a good spot, didn't you?
It never lets me down.
Yeah.
Yet again, it doesn't.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for showing us how you fish.
Pleasure, Dan.
Showing us the boilie approach. I'll be coming on here later on in the year to catch him when he's a bit bigger, and you're not having a guess. So join us in the next show where we've got the unstoppable Tom Dove and we're fishing Swan Valley. See you on the bank.
For a chance to see more of the underwater footage shown in this series, check out the state-of-the-art underwater carp fishing series, available from all good tackle shops.
This episode of Thinking Tackle is in association with Daiwa Linear BR Reels.